Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Willy Silberstein. I will be the moderator today, and I would like to welcome you to Stockholm Peace Talks, organized by the Swedish Parliament and Interpeace. 2 days ago, you visited Auschwitz. And being the son of a survivor from Auschwitz, I think it's important to bring that into the discussion today. So I would like to thank you for going there. The Peace Talks are an event where speakers from different sectors share their personal stories, ideas, and practical solutions to build peace. They began in 2013 with the first ever Geneva Peace Talks, co-organized by the United Nations Office at Geneva, the Geneva Peace Building Platform, and Interpeace. These talks are now being rolled out in different parts of the world with the aim of expanding the space for dialogue and contributing to the discussions about peace. I would like to welcome those who are watching online around the world, and that includes, of course, viewers from the UN office in Geneva. Hello, Geneva. We also have a live Twitter coverage, so the hashtag is @Stockholm Peace Talks. Please use that a lot. Tonight you will hear stories from 10 individuals. Our speakers have very different backgrounds. Some of them work in business, some work in the public sector, some come from abroad, and others are from right here, Stockholm. What unites them is that they will share their personal stories of peace and how each individual can make a difference. There will be an opportunity to interact directly with the speakers during a reception afterwards. That is not possible online, I may add. We have 4 main themes that run through our peace talks today. Role of individuals in building peace abroad. Sweden's role in building peace on the world stage. How our network society brings us closer together and can help us build peace. The importance of peace at home. Our first speaker tonight is also our host, Urban Ahlin, Speaker of the Parliament. He's worked for the past 20 years in the field of foreign policy. Welcome up, Urban.
Thank you very much. Her Royal Highness, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me as the Speaker of the Swedish Parliament. So greatly welcome you all to this Peace Talks in Stockholm. And I have been asked to say a few words about what peace means for me. And this is actually a little bit tricky for a speaker, because a speaker in Swedish Parliament is supposed to be very politically neutral. So please allow me to be very personal. In 1994, I was elected member of the Swedish Parliament. I was 29 years old. I was very proud, and I really longing for going up to Stockholm, putting forward proposals, pushing the green button or the red button, and change people's life. Doing it better for my voters, doing it better for my constituency back home. I came here to this room, and this is the second chamber of the Swedish Parliament. This is the meeting room for the biggest political party group. I'm a social democrat, so my seat was actually over here. In 1994, Sweden was still suffering from the financial crisis in the beginning of the 90s. We started with increasing a lot of taxes. We started with cutting down enormously on different benefits, children benefits, allowances for unemployed people. It was tough. Being a politician, going home back to my hometown, Mariestad, meet my voters, they were really angry with me about everything that we did. But in the end of 94, we politicians believed that we are out of it. We saw the light in the tunnel. Finally, we could rest. And then in spring 95, 4 events happened that changed my view about things in the world. 4 events. It was an earthquake in Kobe in Japan. That forced me, as a newly elected MP, to come back here in this chamber and sit on that chair and increase even more taxes. It forced me as an MP to cut down even more in the Swedish welfare system because the financial industry shaked because of the earthquake in Kobe. The pesetas in Spain were suddenly released, and the devaluation was enormous in Spain. Hit Sweden enormously. Interest rate went up, the currency exchange rate went down. Chiapas Indians, do you remember them? Indians in Chiapas in Mexico made a kind of a revolution. The financial sector was nervous. I had to go in here and take new decisions about increasing taxes and cutting in the welfare because Sweden's economy was hurt. And there was a guy in Singapore working at a bank called Barings Bank. He himself worked in the financial industry, but he did such a wonderful job, so he, made the whole bank go bankrupt because he speculated so much. As a new MP, I had to go in here, take decision in my party group of increasing taxes and lowering the welfare in Sweden. I realized, as a newly elected MP, 29 years old, that this world is enormously interdependent. What we do here matters for other people in the world. What they do matters for us. This world is intertwined. Think about it. If you look at the world map, you can easily see that prosperous countries have prosperous neighbors, because we mostly trade and work with our neighboring country. For Sweden, Germany and Norway is our biggest trading partners. We have been living in a peace for more than 200 years, thanks to great neighbors. We are a welfare state with a good economy and healthy societies because we have good neighbors. So if you want to be in a prosperous country, make your neighbors prosperous. Because you see, you are more secure if your neighbor is secure. You are more prosperous when your neighbor is getting more prosperous. And if people and countries around the world realized that this is not a zero-sum game where I benefit from someone else's losses, if everyone realized that we are interdependent, we are dependent on each other, I think this world would be a much better place. So what I'm trying to say is, it's actually quite simple. It has been said in all religions. It has been said in all cultures all around the world. In one simple sentence, what is called the golden rule. Do to others what you want them to do to you. The world is interdependent. What you do matters for others. What they do matters for you. That, my friends, is peace for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Urban, and thank God the speaker does not have to be neutral when it comes to peace. We appreciate that. Ghaida Rinawie Zoabi is a Palestinian Arab citizen of Israel. She is the founder of the Injaz, the Center for Professional Arab Local Governance that deals with Arab governance issues in Israel. She will share with us what peace means to her as a Palestinian Israeli. Most welcome, Ghaida.
Good evening. My name is Ghaida Rinawie Zoabi, and I live in Nazareth, Israel. I'm a Palestinian Arab citizen of the State of Israel. Confusing, right? It will be even more confusing in the coming 2 minutes. We are an indigenous minority. We are a total of 20% of the total population in Israel. But we are also, in total, 20% of the total population within the Palestinian people. I will start by 2 short stories from my personal life. During the summer of 2000, and during the Israeli war on Lebanon, the second Israeli war on Lebanon, where Israeli aircrafts were bombing Beirut, and Hezbollah missiles were attacking the north of Israel, mainly the Galilee and the region where I lived. Most of the casualties from the Hezbollah missiles were Arabs, were Palestinian Arabs, citizens of the state, mainly because we didn't have, back at that time, we didn't have no shelters or no alarm system. In fact, in Nazareth, in a neighborhood near my house, 2 kids that were playing in the street were killed by Hezbollah missiles because they didn't hear the missiles hitting the ground. And I remember a very, very difficult conversation with my son when he was 3-year-old at that time, because every time I heard the missiles hitting on the ground, I would grab my kids to the bathroom and hide there. And he used to ask me, why is Hezbollah attacking us? And I said, Hezbollah is attacking Israel, and Israel is attacking Lebanon. So he said, yes, but Hezbollah is Arab, right? This is what you told me. And we are Arab, so why is Hezbollah attacking us? I said, Hezbollah is attacking Israel, and Israel is attacking back Hezbollah. And for me as a parent, it was one of the most embarrassing moments in my life, because at that time I didn't know what to give a good answer for my kid. Before the establishment of Israel as a Jewish state in 1948, most of the people, the Palestinian people in the villages and towns were fleeing or forced to be evacuated from their villages and from their houses by the Israeli army. My father's family, who lived back at that time in Rinawie, which is a small village near Nazareth, they heard, the people from Rinawie heard that Nazareth surrendered to the Israeli army, and that's why the people from Rinawie decided that they will flee. My father's family fled as well, and they got to Ain al-Hilwi refugee camp in Lebanon. They lived there for 2 years, and back at that time, my father was a small child, and for 2 years he worked as selling candy bars in the streets in Ain al-Hilwi refugee camp. Then after 2 years, my grandfather decided that it's not a way of living, and that the only way is to get back to Rinawie, to their village. And it was, of course, illegal, but the only way to get back was to get in pairs of 2. So at the beginning, it was my grandmother with the babies, and then it was my father with his brother, 10-year-old and 8-year-old, getting back from Ain al-Hilwi alone to Rinawie village. It was a journey of 3 days. Nowadays, my father is a doctor. He is the head of the dialysis department in Nazareth Hospital. He always says that he is an accomplished and successful man, not because of Israel, but in spite of Israel. He works with a lot of Jewish co-workers, a lot of Jewish doctors, but he would never invite anyone to his house, because he said that Jews kicked him out of his house, so he would never invite a Jew into his house. I'm a peace builder. But I'm a second generation of a Nakba, which is the trauma for Palestine. And there is a huge difference between my father's generation and my generation, because for my father's generation, Israel came to them. It forced itself on them. For our generation, we were born into Israel, and we don't know any other reality than being a citizen of the state. During the Oslo peace process, both the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority said to us, sit, wait, and once the Palestinian state will be established in the coming years, you will have your full citizenship and you will have the dignified living that you want. Of course, the Palestinian state was not established, and the result was the second Intifada in 2000, including the killing of 13 young protesters from our community by the police forces. I think that what happened afterwards, and during the last decade mainly, there was a huge shift within our own community. We started, and this is something that our generation is focusing on, we started to realize that the solution to our reality would not come from Allah. It will come from ourselves. We will, if we start to be responsible and taking responsibility over creating our own solution, then the solution will come. One of the great examples of what I'm trying to tell you is the establishment or the articulation of the Future Vision document that I was part of a group that articulated it with the support, of course, of Interpeace, where in that document we presented it to the Israeli government stating what kind of a future would we want as citizens within the Israeli state, and what kind of a relation would we want for us to have in the future with the Palestinian people. I would end by saying this. I believe that we are a creation of both worlds. We are part of the Palestinian Arab Muslim world, but we are also part of the Israeli Western world. And because of this dilemma, complexity, confusion, it could be the opportunity for us to be the true builders for any peace, sustainable peace between Palestinian and Israelis. And that is what peace means to me. Thank you very much.
Ghaida, thank you very much. Our next speaker will take us to another part of the world, Papua New Guinea. Peter Wallensteen is a leading international peace researcher at Uppsala University and the University of Notre Dame in the United States. He will share with us his experience on what an academic can do in mediation. Please step up, Peter.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. Ladies and gentlemen, as you heard, I'm dealing with the peace research, and my assignment is to say a little what can we contribute at this very serious time and serious movement. And the first thing I think we can contribute is a bit of statistics. So, our conflict data program just has reported that the number of wars last year, 2014, were 10. And that is the highest number in this century. It also points to very limited achievements in making peace to end these wars. We find fewer peace agreements than in many years. And it's alarming because we also know that peace agreements have a higher quality today than before, and that war endings with peace agreements are more likely to remain at peace than others, including the victories that most parties search for. because victory is always what the parties want. But we know that victory is not the typical outcome of a war. It is much more common that it ends in a stalemate or in a ceasefire, or, as I said, a peace agreement. And it's not unusual to people to be skeptical about peace agreements. They say it's just another paper. But the record defies such negativism. The 200 peace agreements concluded since the end of the Cold War have been instrumental in ending about 40 different conflicts. So after all, most conflicts do end in some way or the other. During the past 25 years, there have been close to 150 smaller or bigger wars, and 30 of them were going on last year, 10 of which were wars, as I said. That means, if you think about it, that 120 have actually ended. We have reasons to believe that also the current ones can be terminated. So if you ask me, as a scholar of peace research, to think about this is one way we can put ourselves, give a picture of the predicament we have. 10 wars are, of course, 10 too many, but it is still less than the 15 we saw in 1990. Efforts to deal with conflicts have paid off, even if they seldom reach the headlines. So this is one way in which I think we can contribute to peace. And this is also one reason why I think that the Interpeace and the Stockholm Peace Talks are at the right moment. It's today we need to think about peace more than ever. But I think we scholars can also be useful in another way. And as the moderator just mentioned, mediation is one of those. And there are several people here who are very experienced in mediation. If you look at the 200 peace agreements I mentioned, most of them have actually involved a third party, somebody mediating. So I will comment very quickly on 3 phases or 3 movements in the mediation. It is when you enter it, it's when you engage the parties, and how you exit it. And I will do that building on my personal experience, as you heard. First, about how you enter into a mediation. In our research, we have identified more than 40 Nordic mediators since the time of Count Bernadotte in 1948. And many, when you ask them, report that the mediation started with a telephone conversation. This is also what happened to me 25 years ago, almost exactly, in 1990, with a call from a university center on the faraway island of Bougainville, Papua New Guinea. The call went very quickly like this. Is this Professor Wallensteen? Yes. We have read your article. Oh, I'm surprised. I was so surprised that I even forgot to ask which one. And the final question, can you come? Well, thanks to this conflict data program, I know what conflict this was all about. The rebel movement wanted the island of Bougainville to become independent. The government, of course, did not want to see its country divided. The origin of this was an environmental destruction created by an internationally operated copper mine. At the time of the call, the conflict was rapidly escalating with increasing violence. The local university center had created a think tank which had contacts with the opposing sides, the government in the capital and the rebel leaders in the jungles on the island. They all agreed on the need for new thinking. Such a shared understanding is, of course, of utmost importance. Only very big powers can, so to say, invite themselves to become mediators. Mostly, the parties are the ones that invite or accept a mediator. This makes sense, of course. It is their conflict, and they need to have a key role in the settlement. And then not just the leaders, the population need to be involved. So I accepted and arrived in Papua New Guinea with a mandate to talk to both sides and look for common ground. And this leads me then to the second component in mediation, and that is engaging the parties. Much mediation takes place as shuttle diplomacy. Knowing how difficult it can be to get the parties to the same table, my involvement resulted in such a traveling between the parties, going from one to the other. They refused to meet. The rebel leaders were suspicious. There was no telephone communication. Mobile phones had been invented, but they were not trusted. Hence, the third parties, that's me and the University Center team, were the only official link between the government and the rebels. And we were traveling through the roadblocks and to the rebel camps, which continuously was changing their venue. This was shuttle diplomacy. It was improved by a tape recorder. That was our invention. We could record the statements of one side and actually travel with it to the other side, play it, they could listen, and they could give a response, and we could go back with the tape recorder. This is how our negotiations were conducted in those days. At times, parties may agree to meet. They didn't in this case, but I was involved in another effort by the Swedish Ministry for Foreign Affairs in about the same time in 1990. And the idea was to establish a direct link between the parties in the conflict on the Middle East, the PLO and the Israelis. I was asked to chair the encounter. Israel had a law against meeting representatives of a terrorist organization, and PLO was identified as such at that time. Legal experts concluded that this law meant that an Israeli could not be seated next to a PLO member and could not talk directly to a PLO member. But going to academic conferences was acceptable, and thus even sitting in the same room. With that information, we could call together a meeting of Israelis and Palestinians in June 1990 under the auspices of Uppsala University in a secret location here in Sweden and in the form of an academic seminar with presentations of academic research. And that made it possible to create a forum where the participants could get to know each other and found ways to communicate. The meeting demonstrated to the two sides that there were well-informed, well-argued and responsible people on the other side. And the seminar resulted in a number of ideas on how to move forward. It was the beginning of contacts. Certainly, politics intervene in many things. In this case, Swedish elections in September 1991, a change of government, and the Swedish file on these Israeli-Palestinian contacts were handed over to the Norwegians. And the Oslo Channel, that you just heard, made global headlines in August 1993, less than 2 years later. But it should be noted that this channel also began as an academic seminar, and the participants were actually formally part of a research project on the living conditions on the West Bank. The channel resulted, as we all know, in a peace agreement, and the process was referred to Oslo for short. With this, I would like to say that meetings of parties can be more fruitful than shuttle diplomacy, but it requires this kind of confidence building. The university setting serves well as a place for mutual dialogue and generation of ideas. In other words, brainstorming. It is a format, I think, to explore further. Finally, exiting. All third-party activity has to end. The conflict, as I said, belongs to the parties and their peoples, and the solution has to be theirs. They are the ones to live with the outcome and to take responsibility for its implementation. So the mediator will leave at a certain moment in time. In my case, in Papua New Guinea, the commitment was expected to be short, and it was. But it led to a signed ceasefire agreement that also was implemented. When working on this, I could borrow ideas from existing peace agreements, the many that I mentioned. I was aware of similar situations, but they were unknown to the parties themselves. I could offer them concrete examples, such as the Åland Islands, which are at the same time self-governing and part of a larger state, Finland. This was valuable to both sides in the Bougainville conflict. I also could recommend diplomatic techniques used when ending the war in Nicaragua around the same time. Lessons elsewhere in the world can help parties in a particular conflict. It is a matter of learning from practical experiences. Many components in conflicts are actually the same. As for my exit then from the Papua New Guinea situation, it had a logical end. There was a ceasefire in place. At that moment, the atmosphere on the island changed. Suddenly, youngsters were out playing football on the beaches. Soldiers in the roadblocks were smiling, waving, and talking happily about going home. When war ends, people are eager to go back to the normality that existed before, even though much has changed. There was a chance for peace at that time, and this is, of course, what we want to create constantly. So during this presentation, I have referred to the Uppsala Conflict Data Program. It's not a commercial product. It's actually a freely available resource on the internet from Uppsala University, and you can all download it to your smartphone without any costs. But it gives some information for how conflicts develop and solutions that can be developed as well. It is a tool for our quest for peace. And indeed, peace is important. It is the most reasonable way of life. We need to emphasize this over and over again, and that makes the Stockholm Peace Talks and its approach very important. But let us remember, it's not just a matter of talk. There is also a need for informed action. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Peter. Had I still worked as a journalist, I would have checked much more your so-called scientific seminars at the university. We had hoped to show you now a film with the Foreign Minister, Margot Wallström. However, this was not possible due to lack of time. Maybe because she's busy working with practical peace building, I don't know, but she does send her regards to each and every one of you. So the next speaker is instead Jan Eliasson. He is a seasoned diplomat and currently the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. And he will share with us some of the reasons for success and failure in mediating conflicts. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you. Your Royal Highnesses, Mr. Speaker, Tord Magnusson and Scott Weber from Interpeace, the initiators of this very important meeting. Dear friends, I see so many in this room. I'm very glad to be home. I arrived this morning. The storm in New York was supposed to stop me, but I'm glad that I had this possibility to come and also to have the possibility of family reunification. My wife is here, and our 3 children, who in different ways are engaged in this conference also. So thank you for giving us that possibility. What does peace mean to you is the question asked at this meeting. And I will recall me posing the same question when I was in Darfur back in 2007. I was trying to make the different tribes in northern Darfur come to the table to negotiate. And I met the clan leaders in the northern Darfur, and then they told me something very strange. They said, we don't understand why peace is a better idea than war. Because we are fighting for our rights, and the government in Khartoum is not giving us those rights. So I said to him, well, why don't you tell me what peace is for you? What is it you want from peace? And then he answered, we want our boys to come home and, of course, not die out there. But we also want a health clinic with a midwife who can take care of the births in this village. And we would very much like for the boys to build a road between 2 villages. And above all, we want you to make a new well for us, because this well, fresh water, was destroyed by the militias who had thrown a dead dog in the well. And then we want, of course, to have the rights of our people respected. That was peace for him. And that reminded me of the time when I was President of the General Assembly, and we had a formula for peace which went beyond peace ending wars. We said there is no peace without development, but there is also no development without peace. And none of the above without respect of human rights. So we need to work with all 3 at the same time. They are all related. And that's why this initiative Interpeace is so good, because it relates to the fact that peace is not only ending wars, peace is also creating conditions that prevent war from breaking out. And there is so much of it right now. And of course, you don't have lasting peace if you don't have respect for human rights and the rule of law, I would say. So I think this also brings together the national and the international. Building a good and strong society at home is a contribution to peace. And we should also understand that a good international solution, a good international formula for ending conflict, for development, is also in the national interest of member states. A good international solution is in the national interest. Can you imagine if that becomes recognized in all the parliaments and by the editorial writers and others? We would change the world. And also conflicts. Conflict is not I would say this is the length of a conflict. But the Security Council particularly works mainly with conflicts here. When CNN is there, when people are dying in great numbers, and when we have these huge humanitarian crises that we have to cover the needs for. But we have to do much more from your position, prevention, and we have to do much more post-conflict. It's like a person who is sick. You have to have convalescence period, but also prevention. So remember that the conflict life is much longer than we usually think of. Don't stick to the urgent phases. Make the conflict resolution, prevention and post-conflict part of conflict. I will end with picking up where Peter Wallensteen, we were serving together in Uppsala, and he once asked me, why don't you try to give the reasons why you fail or succeed in negotiations? I think my friend Rolf Akers will recognize this. We have been in similar positions. And I was trying to be systematic. Maybe I've acted pretty spontaneously on what is the right thing to do in negotiations and mediation. But I got 4 reasons to fail or to succeed in negotiations, mediation. I dare say that you can perhaps apply that wider in life. The 4 reasons are the following. One is the word. All of you in this room, I'm practically sure, have as your most important tool to influence your word, your written word and your spoken word. And I don't think we spend enough time on the nuances and the coloring of the language and the synonyms needed and the enormous richness of language. This is, of course, the diplomat's main tool, and the lawyers, I would say also. So that's number 1, the word. Secondly, I would say timing, to choose the right time to act. We do often mistake by doing things too late. I see that far too often in the UN. But I would also say there are mistakes if you do things too early, particularly in negotiations, where you have to make sure that you have the exact timing. Second reason. The third reason is cultural sensitivity. And this, of course, is something we need not only in the international arena in today's world, but also in our own countries, where the world is inside our own countries. It's the same way as we, as a country, is in the world. And that cultural sensitivity, respect for religion and traditions and culture, is absolutely crucial to establish trust, because without trust, you cannot reach result in mediation, negotiation. And then the last point is personal relations and your own personality. With age, I've come to the conclusion that it's probably the most important part, that you establish that trust, that you stand on the side of truth, and that you are faithful to your values, and that you inspire respect and even sympathy. Although I must admit it wasn't easy to mobilize sympathy with Saddam Hussein when I negotiated with him. But the story that I will finish with is the story of the carpet in Tehran. I was in Tehran and during the Iran-Iraq war. I was very tired because they had kept on for 3 days on the same subject, no movement. And I missed out on the first point, language. I said, let's break up. I wanted to have a break to just, get some fresh air. But they translated that into Farsi, like I was traveling to the airport and the negotiations were over. So the foreign minister of Iran was very upset and said, what are you doing? Well, you are supposed to make peace between Iran and Iraq. What is it you really want to do if you don't want to negotiate? And then I leaned back and I said, well, since this is the end of my diplomatic career, I might as well think, what is it I want to do? So I said, I want to see your carpet museum. I've never been to this carpet museum. It's supposed to be a fantastic museum. So in the end, I ended up with a museum with two of the delegates from the Iranian side. After that 3-hour visit to that fantastic museum, I recommend it warmly, they came into the room with the foreign minister, with me, and then they pointed to me and said, this is our friend. In other words, I had pushed the button, cultural sensitivity. Here, a person from Northern Europe comes there, and what he really wants to do is to see the carpets made by her grandparents, who as child labor had made those carpets, and that was the key. So that brings back the human dimension, which I think Interpeace stands for. And let us remember that the UN Charter, which I always carry in my pocket, has as its first 3 words, we the peoples. We are here to serve the peoples, and we have to listen to their voices. Thank you very much.
Jan, thank you very much for that speech. After all these interesting speeches, we need something different. I therefore give you one of the biggest stars of contemporary hip-hop, Adam Tensta. Please step up.
We down. I said I died for love. Pulling bullets for, yeah, 1 for the money, but 2 I did for you, babe. Took you across the world when I was living in my suitcase, and I admit that I was acting cold, but it was too late. Communication ever, guess it didn't go 2 ways, And she never knew what I was feeling. I should have written back, but I didn't. I put the phone on silent just so I can say I missed it. And I still don't understand why a motherfucker did it. Yeah, I only know that I lost you because of that. Now you're sitting there with pistols in your lap. You're trying to shoot me down every time you get the chance. You're just trying to make it hurt. You're just trying to get me back. I understand, but I can tell you this. Being without you is a war when I'm a pacifist. Shots ring all around and someone hit me. It's not what I wanted. It's a shame that this is all there is. But this is war, baby. Suddenly we down, you put one in my chest, and then feel more. Shouldn't have tried for, pulling bullets for, don't push me, cause I'm too close to be a stranger. But even when we try, we don't say much. What am I even to do when you still harboring the same grudge? Don't pull the pin on that grenade. I don't want you to keep hurting. Don't know what else I can say. Duck for cover, run for shelter, AK-47 sprays. Took so many bullets for you, made me weak like 53. This in a year and 7 days. I wrote too many songs, I did too many wrongs. The light behind these shades, I just couldn't take them off. It doesn't make it right, then you even out to us. And you find somebody else, speaking of a shell shock. Don't understand, but I can tell you this. Being without you is a war when I'm a pacifist. Shots ring all around, someone hit me, it's not what I wanted. It's a shame that this is all there is. This is war. Suddenly we down. You put one in my chest, and I feel one. Cause I said I died for love. Wishes got you unloaded. Suddenly we down. You put one in my chest. for a try, pulling bullets for you.
Thank you. Of course, it's an honor being here. Blue Line is in the building. Next track is called The Empty, and it's from my forthcoming album called The Empty. Hope you like it. And this is to everyone that's had love and lost love. Because that's how it goes sometimes, you know? Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't really work out. So you don't want me to call you? Wait, no need to answer that. What I want but I ain't ought to. This is leading nowhere and back. Let it burn, let it be the most beautiful thing that ever happened in there. Never regret it, even though we never landed what we imagined. And the nights without you are cold, even when I lay with somebody else. Like I'm walking across the North Pole, looking to the sky for some ambience. Can you find some, cause I can't. No matter how many I ran through. Between these sheets in my bed, stuck in my head is a siren, and it won't quiet down. I guess it's sounding for her. Reminding me that I don't wanna fuck it all up, it's only right that it hurts. And it won't quiet down. I guess it's sounding for her. Reminding me that I don't wanna fuck it all up, it's only right that it hurts. Try to understand how you felt when I took your breath away and you fell through the floor by 5 stories down, and I couldn't give you anything else than a new hell. What am I to say? I don't know. I'm still a blame thinking, can let it go.
So I celebrate life. Pour up, we got plenty. Midday in the middle of the night. What we do to survive in the empty. So I celebrate life. Pour up, we got plenty. Midday in the middle of the night. What we do to survive in the empty. What we do to survive in the empty. What we do to survive in the empty.
Where are we going next? Only Zeus knows that if he ever was. I'm stumbling down these steps, hit my Nike windbreaker and my Adidas. Try to outrun my demons, but they right on my heels. And 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4. Haven't shaken them yet, not even a little bit. Push a button, pull a trigger, climb a mountain, jump off a cliff. Cause you know, baby, I would. From 1,000, I wonder if you see me now. Or is it more like a blind joust on horseback in his armor? Trying to not get hit by this karma in the form of a car. Saying you don't wanna be involved. Saying you don't wanna know me anymore, not ever. And that's all. The very worst of outcomes. I think worse than death even. Surrounded by how comes, no answers, just reasons. To never delve this deep no more. And never walk this through the door. Cause I don't wanna be weak, but I can't. Get off the seesaw. Look what you made me do. Now I'm a fool in public. Other girls play this album, but I hope you love it. I hope you love it. You know?
So I celebrate life. Pour up, we got plenty. Midday in the middle of the night. What we do to survive in the empty. So I celebrate life. Pour up, we got plenty. Midday in the middle of the night. What we do to survive in the empty. to survive in the empty? What we do to survive in the empty?
Thank you.
I have not done any research, but my guess is this is the first time hip-hop has been heard like this in the second chamber. And Urban, maybe this is a recipe for making politics even more popular. With advances in technology, our world is much more connected. We speak about a connected world. Elaine Weidman-Grunewald is the Vice President of Sustainability and Corporate Responsibility for the Ericsson Group. She will talk to us about the networked society and how it will enable changes for making peace. I don't know if Elaine is going to rap or just speak, but you're most welcome up.
Your Royal Highness, distinguished guests, I don't want to disappoint you, but I will not rap. I would like to start with a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, who said, "It isn't enough to talk about peace, one must believe in it. And it isn't enough to believe in it, one must work at it." And I fundamentally believe that as we become more and more interconnected on this planet, we have a chance, like we've never had before, to work on this in a more interconnected way. In my talk, I can't help but have a technology slant to it. I have worked for 16 years for one of the leading information and communication technology companies. In Sweden, I don't need to tell you, it's Ericsson. And in that time, so much of what I do and my own personal thoughts around peace are so tied with what I do every day at work. And I have three main points today. I'd like to talk a bit about what we call at Ericsson the network society, and how the network society can empower a whole new society of change makers for peace. I'll also talk about technology can create a culture of engagement, of unity and community, which is also directly related to peace. And third, I'll share a few personal experiences from an area that I work with every day called Technology for Good, and what I think that we can all do as individuals in this area. But first, the network society. The network society is today. It's the world we're living in right now. I bet none of you leave your house without your smartphone every day. Your smartphone is guiding you through traffic. It's helping you conduct your business. You're using it for commerce, and perhaps most importantly, you're using it every day to be in instant contact with family and friends. But let's put this in perspective. if we look back over the last 30 to 40 years, we're experiencing a change that I would argue is greater than the entire Industrial Revolution. It took us roughly 100 years to connect 1 billion places using simple phone calling. It took us about 25 years to connect 5 billion people. And within a period of about 15 years, we will connect 50 billion devices. So the pace of change has never been faster. And what the network society means is that anything that can benefit from being connected will benefit from being connected in the future. So this scale has been transformative. It's opening up new doors and new windows, regardless of your age, your race, your gender, or your religion. And the benefits are on more equal terms than ever in the history of humankind. You have access to information anywhere you are, and this is bringing benefits not just to people and businesses, but to society as a whole. But despite the advantages of our interconnectedness, the world has never been more in conflict. We started 2015 with the terrorist attacks in France. We're seeing the advent of diabolical groups like ISIS and Boko Haram, and perhaps less known conflicts that Jan talked about, like Darfur, South Sudan, and the Central African Republic. And you could look at certain terrorist groups who start to compete for land and for territory, and they're competing with each other for recruits. And you could say, isn't this fueled in part with the very internet that we're bringing? So what's going on? We've never been more connected, yet the world is so much more divisive. With the connectivity, we hear and see more, but isn't this just providing an outlet for rogue groups to thrive? Last week, I was at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and I listened to U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry talk about terrorism, and he said, "We can't change minds without knowing what's in them." And this resonated with me for two reasons. First, it highlights the importance of education and educating youth. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, what moral responsibility do we have as individuals, and in my world, representing a company, to drive the technology that we bring as a force for good in the world? This leads me to my second point. The potential and the promise is there to bring people together through the use of technology, but how can we use this to create the culture of engagement that we all want? Thanks to mobile communication, we've seen huge leaps in areas like education, healthcare, social and financial inclusion, but there are gaps and conflict still runs rampant. At the World Economic Forum, another statistic that stood out for me last week is that 66% of the world's poor live in conflict zones. This goes back to the point that Jan made about the role of development and how it's so intertwined with peace. It creates a positive spiral. When parents can feed their children, children can go to school, and the community can see a future. But it's a negative spiral when the opposite is true. So peace is not an end in and of itself, and you can't separate the two. As a citizen of the network society, we are so dependent on technology to exist for our identities, to say, here I am, and my view matters. But technology alone is not the answer. A mobile phone will not end poverty, but it will help empower people to lift themselves out of poverty, and poverty being so closely intertwined with conflict. Ericsson was founded in 1876, and one of our most basic fundamental beliefs at that time and still through to today is that access to communication is a basic human need. And these days, we even talk about a basic human right. Our intention is to bring communication for all, and the technology that we develop is wholly dependent on our intentions. My final point is to share a few personal experiences of technology for good and what I think we can all do as individuals. I've been working for the last couple of years with the Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative. Shortly, you will hear Forrest talk about that project in more detail. But the experience I have had is in helping him to build a youth peacemaker network. We're working in South Sudan and Uganda with former child soldiers, but also in places like Mexico, helping to keep youth out of drug trafficking and gangs. And soon we'll be bringing that to different ethnic conflicts in Myanmar. And in that project, we have provided the youth in the project who come from all different regions, different cultures, and different ethnic tribes with mobile phones and computers so that they can be in contact with each other. And when the violence broke out in December of 2013, despite all the boundaries between them, they used the phones to warn each other and to warn each other of where the attacks were and where they would take place. So they created their own early warning system amongst them. But the second part of that is perhaps the more important part. When we started working in this project and bringing the technology angle, what the kids, they didn't want the phones just for the sake of having a phone. They wanted to learn vocational skills and learn how they could get into technology, because in order to not become a child soldier, they needed to have a way to get a job. And they saw that access to information and communication technology was a key skill for their future. So you'll probably hear more about that coming forward. The second example is a program we've had in Ericsson called Ericsson Response. This is a program that was set up in the year 2000 to support the UN and the emergency telecom cluster in times of disaster. We put in emergency telecom equipment for humanitarian workers. If I look back over the last 15 years, when we started with this program, so much of it was about earthquakes and natural disasters and storms, typhoons, and making sure that we had equipment on the ground so people could find each other. These days, the evolution of disasters have become so much more intertwined with conflict. Our latest mission this year has been in northern Iraq, where we put up internet connectivity for IDP camps, helping families, thousands of families that had fled from violence of ISIS. And we have connected thousands of humanitarian workers to enable them to be able to do their job much more effectively. In conclusion, I would say, I wake up sometimes in the morning and I read the headlines about Ebola and all the different conflict, and it's pretty easy to feel a sense of despair. But I think within our own personal sphere of influences, we can do so much more. My personal sphere is about technology. And going back to what Eleanor Roosevelt said, it's not enough to talk about peace, one needs to work at it. And as we become more aware and more connected with everyone else on the planet, we have an unprecedented opportunity to work on this that we've never had before. So as a company leader, I'll continue to work as an advocate for technology for good. But as a global citizen in the network society, I think we can all do much more to make voices heard and to help push for what we believe is right and help create the culture of inclusion. The headlines might cause dismay, but I still wake up every day thinking, what else can I do today to be a force for good in the network society? Thank you.
Elaine, thank you very much. And as Elaine said, we'll hear more on how human connection can be an engine of peace. Forrest Whitaker is an artist, founder and CEO of the Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative, and UNESCO Special Envoy for Peace and Reconciliation. He will join us on a video film.
I'd like to begin with a thought experiment. Consider two different worlds. In both of these worlds, there is no war, no fighting, no violence. But the first world is something out of a science fiction novel. It's sparsely populated, and the individuals that live there are very spread out, hundreds of miles away from the closest person. There's practically no human interaction of any kind. The second world is very densely populated. Every day, people from different tribes come together to exchange goods, ideas, and cultures. People within tribes live and work together in large groups. So both worlds are equally devoid of war and violence, but which world would you say is more peaceful? Which one would you rather live in? When we think and talk about peace, we often present it as the absence of bad things. Peace is a lack of war. Peace is a lack of crime. Peace is a lack of poverty. But the reason why, and I would guess some of you would prefer the second world, is that in reality, peace isn't just the absence of bad things. It is the presence of good things. Peace is people having their most basic human needs met. Peace is people exchanging knowledge. Peace is people sharing and abiding and mutual respect. Peace is people working together towards a communal goal. And all of these good things have something in common. They all require human connections. You cannot be loved unless you have someone to love you. You cannot share knowledge unless you have someone to give it to. You cannot respect a person you do not know exists. You certainly cannot work together if you have no one to work with. The spark of peace exists within every single one of us. But the physical manifestation of peace in the world around us depends on these individual sparks coming together to create a fire. Human connections are the fuel that make these fires possible. Let me give you an example from my own experiences. My foundation, the Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative, operates a program called the Youth Peacemaker Network. The goal of this program is to empower young people in parts of the world touched by conflict to become peace builders and positive agents of change in their community. In 2012, we expanded the Youth Peacemaker Network to Jonglei State in South Sudan. We recruited youths from all the major ethnic groups in the region. These 22 young men and women had lived their entire lives in close proximity to each other. But when we all gathered together for the first time, many of them were meeting people from tribes they had never encountered before. They learned and grew together. They developed their abilities as mediators and conflict transformers. And before long, they were reaching across tribal lines to work with and support each other. In December of 2013, South Sudan erupted in violence. I've been heartbroken to see this civil war unfold and to hear how it is impacting our young peace builders. But I was also incredibly moved to see that when the fighting started, our peace builders checked in on each other to make sure they were all right. They acted as a sort of first warning system, sending alerts through the network when they knew there was danger in a particular area. They communicated with each other and they coordinated their efforts as they traveled around their communities and villages, advocating together for peace and nonviolence. Mother Teresa once said, "If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other." Here in South Sudan, in the middle of this terrible conflict, these young men and women have discovered just how much they belong to each other. They come from different backgrounds, tribes, and cultures that until a few years ago, some of them had no idea even existed. But because they were able to connect to each other, to teach and learn from one another, to grow together, they made a fire of peace that burns brightly in a part of the world that has been plunged into the darkness of war. All around the world, too many of our brothers and sisters still live in this darkness. Tens of millions of people, many of them children, were directly affected by armed conflict in 2014. But peace is not just the absence of war. When men cannot walk the streets without fear of discrimination, when women cannot secure equal pay for equal work, when children cannot receive a basic education, they too are living in darkness. There are certain needs and desires that are universal across countries and across cultures. We all need food and water. We all want to feel secure in our surroundings and comfort in our communities. We all desire the respect of our peers and strive to have our voices heard. These needs connect us all as human beings. And wherever they are not being met, there will always be darkness. But driving out this darkness takes collective action. It takes many people coming together, like these young men and women in South Sudan, acting as a single entity, united in purpose to build the fire of peace. Most importantly, building peace requires every single one of us to remember that we belong to each other. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. When there is disease in Liberia, when there is war in Syria, when there is poverty in India, we all suffer. By the same token, because our fates are forever intertwined, when a woman in Bangladesh teaches her son to read, or when two young men in South Sudan put down their rifles and shake hands, we all benefit. The world has been made a more peaceful place for all of us. So this means that collectively, we get to choose the world we live in. Through the connections we form with our fellow human beings, through the ideas we share, the friendships we form, the respect we foster, we can shape our society. We can create a world where poverty is only found in history and in fiction, and where discrimination is just as rare. A world where Israeli and Palestinian children learn and play together. A world where every person has access to quality health care, where education is free for every boy and girl, where everyone feels loved and secure. If we remember that, we belong to each other. And if we pool our collective intelligence and tackle the challenges together, then we can transform the world into the one it ought to be. We can build a fire of peace that will drive out darkness all over the globe. Thank you for being here today and for everything you do to make this world a more peaceful world for all of us.
We now come back to Sweden. Our next speaker is a well-known rapper, and he also does reggae. His name is Jason Diakité, but most of us know him as Timbuktu. There he is.
Your Royal Highnesses, esteemed guests, I'm very happy to be here, very happy they let me in the building. I think everyone in this room has a pretty well-established notion, and definitely by now, of what peace is. Reconciliation, cooperation, harmony, and accord. A time of stability where our human endeavors are free to prosper without the burdens of conflict and destruction. But when we look around the world today, the lack of peace is striking. But let me take you to the small city where I was born, Lund. It's at the southernmost tip of this very long land. And this is in a country that hasn't been in a state of war for more than 200 years. Healthcare and education are still free, and they are the right of everybody living in Sweden. The population of Lund today is made up of many nationalities. People who fled the military dictatorships of Argentina, Chile, Uruguay. People who fled wars and poverty in Africa and Iran. And later, people who fled the wars in the Balkans, Somalia, Palestine, Lebanon, Iraq, Kurdistan, and now Syria. People who all came to Sweden to reap the benefits of peace. Security, healthcare, education, infrastructure, and so forth. People came here seeking a future. People come here seeking security. For without security, there can be no peace. And without peace, the future can't be expected. I grew up in the midst of all these benefits that peace generates. So much that I have never not known literal peace. So much that I take both peace and my future for granted. Maybe even too much. However, in our seemingly peace-loving land, a profound conflict is brewing. And it seems many of us feel there isn't enough peace for everyone, that the benefits of our society are limited, that we don't have enough peace to share, especially now that everybody wants a piece of it. And this is true not only in Sweden, but we see these tendencies reaping new followers across this whole continent. A formidable adversary of peace, fear, is growing. And as in all conflicts, more and more of us are seeking to place blame, looking to find whose fault it is that our so lasting peace is being threatened, and that our hard-earned prosperity may be usurped by unwanted, unworthy, or unwelcome guests. For it seems we all forget too easily. We forget that all cultural, ethnic, and religious diversity, and diversity in general, I would say, has been essential ingredients in the progress and richness of all great societies in the history of the world, from the Chinese, the Persian, the Roman, to the American. Our differences is what make us strong. They are not contrary to what some would have you believe, unresolvable obstacles that require us to defend ourselves against what is foreign. Because what is foreign today can be familiar tomorrow, and in that case, we are enriched by it, enlightened by having learned new things. I myself am the son of immigrants, a black father and a white mother who came from America to Sweden in 1969. They were also seeking a kind of peace, an alternate future. In my life, my greatest struggle has been one of identity and finding inner peace. Am I black? Am I white? Am I Swedish? Am I American? For many years, I denounced the blackness in me. I stood staring in the mirror of my room for hours on end, wishing that my hair would be straighter and my skin would be fairer. I wanted to look like the rest of the kids in my school. At the time, I went to school with only 2 other non-white pupils. Lund in the 80s was not as diverse as it is today. In school, every day for 4 years, the same 3 boys tormented me, calling me the same derogatory names, referring to the color of my skin. I started to understand that the color of my skin was bad. And I fought with those same boys every day. And every word they said burned into my soul. At the time, I didn't have the words that I have today to defend myself with, only my boyish hands to do my talking for me. But every day I wished I wasn't different. I started to hate the color of my skin. To my young self, being different was a burden. I questioned my parents on why they'd have a kid who didn't look like them. And I can tell you it's a truly strange revelation as a kid to realize that neither your father or mother can entirely understand who you are, being that I'm only half my mother's color and half my father's. Without expanding on that subject any further, let me get to the point of what I wanted to say and how it relates to peace. At the age of 12, I got my first skateboard. I fell in love instantly and spent every waking moment on that board. One evening, I was skating at a playground near where I lived. A group of boys on their bikes stopped and stood for a long time just looking at me. After a while, one of the boys asked me what I was doing, and I explained that I was trying to learn a specific trick on my skateboard. And then I realized that the boy asking me was one of the 3 boys that bullied me in school. A boy I really, really disliked. But we struck up a conversation that evening, and a few days later, he came to the same playground with his own skateboard. And since then, we've actually been best friends to this day. We spoke very little about the differences we once had, as we were more caught up in our newfound similarities. We found common ground. In that case, it was a piece of plywood and 4 rubber wheels. More wasn't needed for 2 restless and curious kids just out to have a good time and explore life. It took many years for me to finally come to terms with my own identity and land in the fact that I'm not half white or black, Swedish or American. I'm both. I've got twice the heritage and twice the culture. What I for so many years saw as a stigma, today I see as a gift. I see my ability to be a bridge between white and black, or Swedish and American, a window between different worlds. At the tender age of 12, peace came swiftly. But on the grander scale of things, peace is seldom easily won. Common ground not as visible, hope not as accessible, slights not as quickly forgotten. But for Europe and Sweden today, it is wise to realize, and I'm going to paraphrase my friend Abbe, that if we don't share our peace with those who need it the most, then they will surely share their war or their woes with us. That is whether we like it or not. The world and all its turmoil is and will keep on affecting us. Peace is something that needs to be created. I believe peace can be taught. Through education, the evil twins of fear and ignorance can be overcome. I believe it's time for the Swedish government and its politicians to set the tone for all its denizens so that we collectively can muster up the strength to take the necessary measures to equip the young people of today for a more tolerant tomorrow. For if we do not squash the ineptitude of xenophobia, it will quickly set a dangerous agenda for us all, leading this peace-loving land down a road of conflict. So hard as it might be to imagine, peace can only be built, and by communication, effort, and conversation, by hearing each other's stories, by understanding and empathizing. But peace is also a possibility. Nowhere near an unachievable one either, but peace needs resolve. We have to decide that we want it, that we really want it. because it will take a lot of work. So I've learned, now that I'm hopefully halfway through life, maybe more, that peace is not something to be taken for granted, even if I am living in one of the few places on earth where we have known a lot of it. Thank you very much.
Timbuktu, thank you very much. Our last two speakers, Deline, Revend, and Tomas, Amanuel, are from Tensta. And for our foreign guests, I just need to explain that Adam Tensta, he took that name. Tensta is the name of a suburb. I realize you can get confused. Deline and Tomas are together with Interpeace working on improving the situation in some of the suburbs of Stockholm. And before I give the stage to you, I would just like to say for our non-Swedish speaking friends here, there are headphones if you want to have translation. For those of you who are watching us on internet, I'm sorry to say it was not possible to have translation for you, but you can still watch. Please step up, the floor is yours.
Ers Majestät, vänner, kollegor. Vi vill hälsa er varmt välkomna. Mitt namn är Tomas Amanuel. Jag är 27 år gammal och jag har föräldrar som är från Eritrea. Men jag bor och är uppvuxen i Tensta som är i Stockholm i Sverige.
Mitt namn är Deline. Jag är 25 år gammal. Mina föräldrar flydde till Sverige från Kurdistan. Jag bor i Segeltorp men är uppvuxen i Tensta. Och det är där jag har jobbat bland annat med Tomas.
Tensta, för er som inte vet, är inte så långt härifrån. Det är ungefär 30 minuter med tunnelbana eller bil. Men politiskt sett så är det lite längre. Och vi är här idag för att vi vill ta upp lite grejer om just fred och hur verkligheten ser ut i Tensta.
Tensta, som ni vet, har uppmärksammats mycket av media. Och man nämner ofta ordet upplopp och kriminalitet. Men för oss som är från Tensta, vi har en annan bild av Tensta. Det är våran ort och vi vet att det finns mycket gott att hämta där.
Vi ska inte bara prata om Tensta utan vi ska prata om vad peace betyder för oss och vad det är lite grann. Och peace för mig handlar om frihet. Man ska kunna vara fri och vara sig själv och liksom passa in ändå i samhället och inte känna att man behöver anpassa sig liksom och vara någon annan. Man ska inte behöva vara rädd eller orolig liksom över att komma in eller få ett jobb eller ha mat på bordet till exempel. Utan det ska vara till för alla och det ska inte behöva vara tryggare i stan till exempel än i Tensta. För då har vi inte friheten.
Fred för mig är att bli sedd för den jag är utan att någon sätter plus- eller minustecken. Fred för mig är också att kunna sätta sig i den andres situation och försöka förstå deras världsuppfattning. För det är bara då jag tror att var och en kan vara tillfred med sig själv.
Vi är här idag för att vi älskar Tensta. Vi bor där och vi har vuxit upp där sedan vi var små. Och jag vet inte om alla har säkert någonstans som de känner sig hemma i och känner sig att man har en identitet. Och för oss är det i Tensta. Men det finns en hel del problem som vi behöver reda ut i Tensta. Och vår ingång i det hela är att vi försöker hjälpa unga och stärka sig själva för att göra en förändring i sig själva och samhället också. Och jag har delat upp problemen lite i 2 olika konfliktlinjer. Och den ena handlar om upplevda problem som vi har i Tensta. Som vi känner, som vi tycker att det är lite orättvist. Och sen finns det verkliga problem också som kommer utifrån. Om vi ska börja med de upplevda problemen så känner många i Tensta att politiker har övergivit Tensta helt. Det är som ett eget samhälle lite grann och det är unikt på flera sätt och vi ser både det dåliga och vi ser både det bra. Och det känns som att samhället tar lite avstånd från Tensta bara för att vi kanske har fått en uppmärksamhet på media. som är lite negativ. Vi tvingas se på hur skolor läggs ner, fritidsgårdar läggs ner, arbetsförmedlingar läggs ner. Och det enda vi kan göra är bara se på, för vi vet inte liksom hur vi kommer fram till lösningar.
Egentligen för att lösa det här problemet som Tomas nämner nu, det krävs bland annat ökad kunskap och att man ökar självförtroendet hos dessa ungdomar genom att kunna ge dem fler valmöjligheter och inte tvärtom och stänga igen olika platser som de har rätt till att vara på, som i precis alla andra orter.
Och sen har vi de faktiska problemen som vi upplever är de riktiga problemen. Och det är lite okunskapen utifrån Tensta. För media kanske ger en negativ bild av Tensta och då kanske man pratar om bränder, man kanske pratar om kriminalitet. Men man ska inte fokusera på vem som bränner och vem som är kriminell, utan man kanske ska börja fokusera på vad som orsakar de här kriminella handlingarna eller de här bränderna. Det här med att folk är kriminella, att de inte har någonting att göra, att det är unga som bränner och att det är unga som bränner. Vi kan lösa det. Det finns många som oss som är unga vuxna idag som vill lösa det här, som vill ha jobb med det här. För vi känner ju alla inom området. Och det är Tensta vi pratar om, för vi bor där och vi känner mycket för Tensta. Men vi känner också att vi vill göra mycket för samhället. Och vi känner också att ungdomarna i Tensta kan göra mycket för samhället.
Det krävs förändringar inifrån och samt hos individen själv. Vi måste börja om och göra rätt. Och för att undvika samma misstag så måste vi byta våra tankesätt. För att vi står där vi står idag på grund av att det finns problem. Och det är saker som man inte längre kan blunda för. Vi tror att där problem finns så finns även lösningar. Och jag är helt säker på att med rätt tillvägagångssätt så kan vi uppnå en förändring. Men vi måste först sätta oss i varandras situationer och försöka förstå varandra.
Jag och Deline har jobbat i ett projekt de senaste 2 åren inom arbetsförmedlingen som kallades för jobbgaraget. Och jag hade ett team med några arbetsförmedlare, några studievägledare, några socialkonsulenter och sen var det 7 ungdomar från området som skulle fånga in ungdomarna och leverera dem vidare till arbetsförmedlarna och studievägledarna. Och vi kände att det här sättet fungerade verkligen. Det här sättet att arbeta på. För att vi bryr oss om våra ungdomar på riktigt. För att det var inte länge sedan vi själva var där. Alltså. Det var ungefär 2 år sedan och kolla vart vi står idag. Vi är i riksdagen och jag har aldrig varit där förut. Tack. Nej, men jag tror mycket handlar om att vi måste se varandra och vi måste se personerna bakom maskerna. För att konflikter och ofred eller vad vi ska kalla det, det beror inte på att människor vill det, utan det handlar om andra omständigheter kanske. Alla har inte samma möjligheter från början. Alla har inte kanske föräldrar som kan guida dem eller vägleda dem eller berätta varför det är viktigt att gå i skolan. Vissa är kanske 15 år och är som en förälder hemma och tar hand om 8 syskon och bor i en liten lägenhet. Det är svårt att förklara för en sån här person vad som är rätt och fel när han har kriget i huvudet. Men vi försöker, vi är där varje dag och vi kommer gå dit ikväll, vi kommer vara där imorgon och över imorgon och nästa vecka och nästa månad och vi kommer fortsätta jobba, men vi behöver lite hjälp. Det är därför vi är här idag.
Och det blir svårt också att göra något bra när man inte får chansen. I jobbgaraget så vi träffar många som saknar jobb och samtidigt hade utgifter som oss alla andra. Men som mer eller mindre var tvungna att försörja sig kriminellt för att de inte kunde få något jobb. Av olika skäl, bland annat att de fanns med i något polisregister. Och det är inte många arbetsgivare som tar emot sådana personer idag. Så vi hade direkt kontakt med arbetsgivare och försökte bygga en bro mellan ungdomar och arbete. Och ja, arbetslöshet har egentligen mycket att göra med kriminalitet. De vet egentligen inte när nästa lön kommer eller om de kommer hamna i större problem. Och alla vill ha ett jobb, men vill jobben verkligen ha allihopa? Vi behöver hjälp för att kunna supporta unga och kunna uppnå sina mål. Och vi har jobbat så och det har gett bra resultat hittills. Så jag tror att det är ett bra tillvägagångssätt.
För att det här inte ska bara leda till prat som mycket handlar om egentligen. Många tycker att politiker kanske pratar mycket och inte agerar mycket, fast man vet egentligen inte vad som händer i kontorer och man vet inte hur mycket folk egentligen arbetar. För det vet vi genom att ha jobbat i en statlig myndighet. Vi vet att det är mycket byråkrati, det är mycket som ska frågas och det är mycket brev och det är mycket möten innan det händer någonting. Men vi är här för att dela med oss lite av våra problem och vad vi upplever och det ungdomarna upplever idag, dag ut och dag in. Och varje dag räknas. Så att för att inte det här ska bara bli prat så vill vi jättegärna ta chansen och bjuda in er allihopa till Tensta, if ni vill komma. För att jag vill verkligen visa er hur fint det är i Tensta och hur ungdomarna är som alla andra människor. Vi är alla samma på ett sätt, fast vi är olika. Och vi kan se på varandra idag, vi kanske känner inte oss lika här, men vi är ändå här och vi vill någonting. Och det ska egentligen vara så enkelt. Vi har ett budskap att komma med och det är inte att vi vill att vi ska ha Ferrari-bilar i Tensta eller att folk ska bli rika. Eller... Folk vill ha jobb eller sysselsättning, det är det enda. Och det är det enda sättet vi kan bidra med att hjälpa samhället. Och det är så vi kan förändras i Tensta och oss själva.
Och det ska inte påverka vart jag kommer ifrån eller vilken religion jag har. Det ska inte påverka mina rättigheter som svensk. Jag menar, vi är i ett av världens bästa länder. Hur kan en ort som bara är 20 minuter från stan se ut som den gör idag?
Ja, det var det vi hade kommit med. Så att,
vi hoppas ni kommer till Tensta.
Vi ser fram emot det.
Nu har vi inte förberett det här så att nu överraskar jag er lite. Men jag tänkte bara för att få lite konkretion. Alltså ni har bjudit in folk här till Tensta, jättebra. Men du sa Tomas också, vi behöver er hjälp. Här har du politiker, du har folk som är mäktiga inom näringslivet och en massa andra som kan göra saker. Vad vill ni att de ska göra? Skicka med konkreta önskemål.
Alltså det vi vill är att samhället kommer tillbaka lite till Tensta också. Att inte vi ska behöva gå ut hela tiden. För att just nu
har de övergett Tensta tycker du?
Det känns så för att banker läggs ner, skolor läggs ner, fritidsgårdar läggs ner. Och det är inte en eller två utan det är flera och varje år. Och alla projekt som kommer läggs ner efter ett år. Så att så fort vi kommer igång läggs de ner. Vilket skapar en hopplöshet i oss själva. Så att det vi behöver hjälp med egentligen det är jobb bland annat. Hjälp från näringslivet. Vi har många som spelar fotboll i Tensta och har ingenstans att gå. Vi har många som sjunger. Och det är bara Adam Tensta som är här idag. Men till exempel. Ja.
Deline, om du också en önskan från dig till det här gänget. Vad säger du?
En ny chans egentligen. Ja. Att oavsett vad som har hänt och det som har varit. Att vi människor ger varandra en ny chans. För att vi måste förstå varandra. Och så måste vi förlåta varandra. Det är bara då vi kan gå vidare. Det är så man skapar fred, tror jag.
Jättestort tack. Tack ska ni ha.
Tack.
Vi har diskussionen får vi ta efteråt, jag är ledsen.
Okay.
Ja, vi tar det. Det blir möjlighet efteråt, för det är mycket välkommet då med en diskussion. Vi börjar, or I should switch into English again. We are approaching the end of this part of this evening, and I am pleased to introduce Scott Webber, Director General of Interpeace, and Tord Magnusson, Chair of Interpeace Sweden.
Your Royal Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for coming. We have heard from 9 speakers this evening about their stories, about what peace means to them. Each and every one of us has a role to play in supporting peace. Peace in the home, peace in your communities, peace in your organizations, peace in your countries, and peace abroad. As we heard, if there's a lack of peace anywhere in the world, we are not safe. Conflict in other parts of the world has a direct impact on us here at home. In my own travels over the last 15 years with Interpeace, going to the 21 different conflict zones in which we work on the ground, I found myself that there are 3 main things that all those contexts have in common. The first is that when you talk to the warring parties, no matter how bitter the hatred, no matter how deep the mistrust between them, they tend to have one thing in common, which is that they all want their children to grow up in a better society than they did. And when there's no other hope, that is a starting point. You can use that as a way to get them talking, not about today, but about the future that they want for their children. And then how are you going to get there? The second thing that I've seen everywhere that we've worked is that too many peace processes fall apart after a few years. And the main reason that happens is that the peace is not really owned by the people of that society. You cannot buy peace, you cannot impose peace, and you can't import it from the outside. It has to come from within the country, from within the culture, as we heard from Jan Eliasson. It has to grow from within, because they're going to have to live with it. And so they have to overcome their differences. For that to work, there are a few things that need to happen. First is that you can't just allow peace to be negotiated between those with the guns. Then you're rewarding those with the guns in a way, aren't you? But for the peace to work, many more groups in society need to be involved. So the process itself has to be inclusive. The second major realization is that for it to be really owned by them, they have to be in the driving seat of the process as much as possible and not be following someone else's tune. The third thing that I'd like to cite is that the most difficult challenge in the effort of building peace is the challenge of building trust. Trust between individuals and groups in society, and in particular, even more difficult, is trust between the population and their leaders. And this is something that we don't spend enough time on. You know, the world spends billions of dollars in a post-conflict situation to rebuild infrastructure, roads, buildings, airports, dams, etc. And all that can go up in smoke within days if a conflict erupts again. And we don't put enough emphasis on the trust-building process in these societies. Now, we are, I think it's fair to say, at a low point globally in terms of public trust in institutions, be they local, national, or international, public trust in leadership, public trust in the markets, public trust in currencies, as we've seen just recently. And one of the major reasons for that degeneration of trust is that our societies are excluding too many people. The sentiment is that our societies are exclusive now. We've just heard from two very brave peace builders from Tensta that we're very proud to work with. This is the reality that they're facing. But it's the same reality that I just saw. I just got back this morning from Mali. It's the same reality that's creating conflict in places like Mali or Somalia, another country in which we work. It's a sentiment of exclusion, a sentiment of inequality. There are those who have and those who have not. And increasingly, the group that have is a very small group. And so public trust in our institutions, in our ways of working, in our political systems is eroding. We have a lot of work to do, all of us, to rebuild that trust. And it starts with making sure that our societies are more inclusive of all, that everyone feels that they have a sense that they can belong in that society, that they have a role to play, and that they're valorized. Before I pass the floor to my good friend Tord, I'd like to say a word of thanks to our host, Speaker Ahlin, for letting us have this event in such a wonderful setting with such a wonderful audience on top of it. But I'd also like to thank Tord Magnusson, who inspired us to start applying the same approaches that we use in countries that are going through very great difficulties, to use some of those same approaches in Tensta. And it's been an amazing experience because the story of peace is actually the story of hope. And when I came to Tensta and discovered the situation there, it wasn't as it had been portrayed in the press, which is what I expected to see. It was exactly the opposite. I saw a population in Tensta that was full of hope, that was proud to be from there, proud to be Swedish, had difficulties, of course, but it was a story of hope. And the story of peace for me is a story of hope. And I want to thank Tord for that inspiration. Thank you. Tord Magnuson.
Thanks, Tord. Ers kunglig höghet, mina damer och herrar. Att oväntade möten kan göra skillnad, det är uppenbart. 22 minuter härifrån med tunnelbanans blå linje finns ett annorlunda samhälle än det jag är van vid. Ett samhälle som jag nog inte funderat så mycket på tidigare. En liten lunch i november 2007 i ett privathem på Manhattan i New York gjorde skillnad för mig. Bland gästerna befann sig en ung man på 21 år som ursprungligen kom från Somalia. Hej, jag heter Ahmed. Var är du där? Och kommer från Tensta. Efter ett kortare samtal fick jag höra att han bott 6 år i Tensta, men aldrig varit hemma hos en svensk familj. Min reflektion var ju, ja så är det naturligtvis. Sådan är verkligheten. Men hur ska man då kunna integreras i det svenska samhället? 10 månader senare kommer Ahmed hem till Sverige för att söka förlängt visum till USA för att börja sina studier på hösten på ett college på Manhattan. Det tog 4 månader innan han fick åka tillbaks. Under tiden han vill lära känna varandra ordentligt med ömsesidiga besök hos respektive familjer. Jag började förstå livet i förorten lite bättre. Där har jag bland annat lärt mig av Gulled som sitter där uppe. Att man måste lära sig att tänka utanför boxen. Att det är viktigt att rätt man säger rätt sak. Inte fel man som säger rätt sak. Det är ganska enkelt. Så man måste ha rätt budbärare för att nå fram. De flesta av oss kan göra något oväntat som kan göra skillnad. Det tror jag. Att åka in till Stockholm blev för Ahmed inte längre så främmande. 1 år senare var jag på konferens i Genève och fick tillfälle att lyssna på Scott Webber från Interpeace. Jag blev imponerad av Interpeace arbete runt om i världen, arbete med freds- och konfliktfrågor. Scott, du måste komma med mig till Tensta och berätta vad ni håller på med. Interpeace arbete skapar bättre möjligheter för fred och hopp i världens oroshärdar. Och hopp är något som saknas hos många som bor i Tensta. Efter ett drygt års förberedelse arrangerade cirklar kring Ahmed och mig en träff i Tensta med 120 personer från innerstaden och förorten. Scott kom dit som talare och gjorde stor succé. Yes. Så började min relation till Interpeace. Mötet mellan Tord Magnusson och Ahmed hos Courtney Ross på Park Avenue i New York resulterade definitivt i att jag står här i riksdagshuset idag. Det vet jag. Upprinnelsen till att vi faktiskt samtliga som är här står här just nu. Tack Ahmed. Tilläggas kan att Ross, som i Ross Tensta gymnasium, där ser ni ett samband. Med förutfattade meningar om det okända bygger man lätt murar mellan olika världar. Att våga närma sig det okända är för mig en utmaning. Att komma till tals med människor från olika kulturer har länge varit mitt intresse. Inte minst beroende på mina kontakter med det multikulturella Mauritius under 30 år. Att prata om olikheter och med andra människor skapar en bra grogrund för att skapa förståelse och därmed bildar en grund till fredlig samexistens. Att fred minskar mänskligt lidande är en självklarhet. Idag är jag ordförande för insamlingsstiftelsen Interpeace Sweden. Målet är att samla in pengar till Interpeace arbete i världen. Interpeace från Genève har också utfört arbete i Tensta som vi har sett resultatet här idag. Och det ligger just nu under utvärdering vad man kan dra för slutsatser av det. I egenskap av medvärd för dagens Stockholm Peace Talks i samarbete med riksdagen vill jag framföra Interpeace tack till kronprinsessan för att hedra oss med sin närvaro. Ett stort tack till Jan Eliasson i spetsen för en skara talmän. Jag tackar talmannen Urban Ahlin för möjligheter vi kan få vara här i riksdagshuset. Jag tackar riksdagens alla viktiga enheter som arbetat fram vårt program. Tack till våra sponsorer, ni vet vilka ni är. Tack till Interpeace team i Genève. Thank you, Geneva. Tack Gulled för att du tog hit scouterna. Tack Willy, Silberstein för en god jobb med moderationen. Och slutgiltigt så vill jag, när jag hittar mitt papper här, där. Tacka mina medarbetare här i Stockholm. Tack artisten, tack Adam Tensta för ditt framträdande i mitten. Hoppas ni vaknade till lite grann. Så slutligen tack till LaGaylia Frazier som kommer att avsluta den här sessionen. Och efter sången så ber jag er alla sitta kvar tills kronprinsessan har lämnat salen. Sedan är vi alla inbjudna till förfriskningar tvärs över gången här för samtal och frågor. Tack för mig.
Hello, Your Royal Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored to be here at Stockholm Peace Talks. This song that I've chosen might not be the typical song that you'd think of for a peace talk, but for me, the words of this song are a big part of the key towards the path to peace. When you're down and in trouble, and you need some love and care, when nothing is going right, close your eyes and think of me. And soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Whether it's winter, spring, summer or fall, hey now, all you got to do is call, and I'll be there, oh yeah. You've got a friend. Whenever the sky up above you should turn dark and full of clouds and all the wind should begin to blow. Oh, well, just get yourself together that you've got friends. 'Cause people can be so cold. They'll hurt you and desert you. They'll take your very soul if you let them. But don't you
Thank you.